I can honestly say that if today were my last 24 hours...
You are going to a dark place, Samuel Lee. Your boys weren't there to help. No one's taking you out of this dark hole.
For the last 17 years, I've lived a fucking good life. We have the UK's largest property training company. It wasn't my goal to build one of the largest. It was the largest.
What's the need?
Because when I get to 24 hours before my death, I want to make sure I've lived.
Can I ask you a personal question? Does young Rob ever speak to you?
I wish I really knew what a mentor was and the value of a mentor when I was younger. You know, who listens to their dad? I was too busy trying to get my dad's love.
Welcome back to the #1 podcast channel, Take a Seat with Sean Land. I hope you've enjoyed all of the guests so far, so don't forget to subscribe and share this with somebody. Today's guest says, if you don't risk anything, you risk everything. He's a best-selling author. He also owns one of the biggest property education companies.
The biggest.
The biggest. And he's also trying his hand at boxing. I want to find out what makes this guy tick, how his brain works, and what's leading him to success. So, well, without further ado, welcome Rob Moore.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
Thank you for coming on. I didn't think we were gonna like reach out to you, but you know, you made it quite simple. You were like, message my guys on the last event. I did that, and yeah, Kumar emailed us back.
Yeah, so. Always a pleasure, never a chore.
So you've come from Peterborough today?
Yeah, we've got a little mini tour. So we're doing 3 interviews today.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
flat out.
Yeah, wow, living the dream.
One of the last times I saw you, I was in central London and you were interviewing Ronnie O'Sullivan.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was looking...
Oh, you came to that?
Yeah, I came to that. It was that sort of charity event that we did at that moment. And I didn't know who you were at that stage. I'm sorry, because I'm not very TV, social media person. No. But I saw you up there and I was like, wasn't taking notes of, you know, what information was coming out. I was keeping an eye on you, like, how are you presenting? How are you speaking? Because I was like, if I want to be a podcast host, I've got to be seeing, like, and watching what you're doing. And it was really good, man. It was really good.
Thank you. Yeah. I think a lot of people who think about doing a podcast don't realise the skill it takes to be an interviewer. Harry and I talk about this a lot because I'm an interviewer, but I get interviewed a lot as well. And yeah, it's when I watch people speak and I see people like you, I look at them as well as the guest. So yeah, it's a lot of people can talk, but they can't listen.
Yeah. It's very important to keep quiet as well, especially if you want a good podcast. You've got to understand it's not about you anymore. It's about your guest and your audience, what they're listening to. And your job is just to push and prod and get them to go into the information that you want out of them. That's what I feel when I'm doing this job. Is that am I thinking on the right terms, or would you put it differently?
No, I would agree with you. So Harry says now we're well over 1,000 episodes that we've done. So I've interviewed hundreds of people and I've been interviewed on hundreds of shows. And my biggest bugbear is when an interviewer takes far too long to get to the question. Because it's very difficult to answer a question that isn't clear. So they take too long, too much irrelevant context. And then most people who interview actually really, they want to be the guest. And so then they want to throw their opinions in. If that's the case, you should be either agreeing that it's a conversation and you almost imagine it's not really a podcast. You imagine it's 2 friends talking. And that's difficult to set up because as soon as you put the microphones and the cameras, it becomes something different. Or they should be a guest, not an interviewer. It's hard to look in. So your job right now is you've got to look interested with me. You've got your notes there and you got to think being in the moment. And also, what's the next question? If you look too much at your notes, we're going to lose rapport. If you don't look at your notes, you might have that awkward pause after this where you don't know where to go next. It's a proper skill being an interviewer for sure. And making them feel comfortable, but not too comfortable. Challenging them, but not so much that, you know, I end up leaving here fucked off.
Or walking out halfway.
I'll give you a refund on your boxing tickets and resell your your table.
You can't do that.
No, and that's all. That is, people underestimate that.
Yes. There's a lot of thoughts going through your head. I like to stay quite calm, though. I'll be honest with you, and I like a bit of everything. Now, I feel that sometimes you have to be qualified with the people that you also speak to. There's a lot of podcast hosts who are just throwing out questions like, "So tell me your journey." What does that mean? Which bit of the journey? Like, so if I've been through a journey myself, I know exactly what I want to ask of you. I think you need to also be qualified. So, I know you're a property expert, but I've been in property since I was 21, 37 now. I've built a good sizable portfolio, and I feel if you say something, my audience are listening to it, but I'm also qualified to, conversate on the same topic and what's worked differently for me. I know you're from Peterborough, and Peterborough is quite close to my heart, because I've got family there for the last 20 years in Peterborough. PE1, near city centre.
Yeah, I live PE1. I won't say the rest of it because I get recognised too much, so I won't say the rest of my postcode. But yeah, I live PE1.
Nice. I know Burma Road. Do you know Burma Road?
I do.
Oh,
I wonder if I own any properties there. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I dabbled in one of the properties on Burma Road actually in 2017, and it's seen immense amount of growth. Like the way I saw it was, I had some money in one of my kids' accounts, and it was getting £100 for the whole year in terms of interest. So I thought, let me put that money in a property. Phoned up my family up there. They said property prices are this. In 2017, it's doubled. So you must see a huge sort of increase in the value of your properties there now.
Yeah. So when we started in Peterborough, was 2006 was our main first year with my business partner Mark Homer, and we bought 20-ish in the first year and 30-ish in the second year and 50-ish in the third year.
Wow.
We held on to a reasonable amount. We also sold some on, which I regret now, because we were buying properties for between, I think the cheapest one we bought was 30 grand. And I think the most expensive one we bought was 80 grand or 85 grand. So maybe the average purchase price we were buying was 70 grand for 2 and 3 beds, usually semi or terrace. And you can't get anything sub 200 now, 250, some of them are going for.
Yeah.
And that's just on the little ones.
Yeah.
And that's just natural growth, because we didn't change the use. We didn't add value other than just tidying it up and doing a really basic refurb. Carpet, curtains, redeck, that was it. And in the property world, there's always the skeptics that go, oh, well, just because everyone says properties will double every 12 to 15 years doesn't mean they won't the next 12 to 15 years, and things are different now and yada, yada. Here's why I tell you I believe that properties will always go up in value. And it's a very simple economic concept called supply and demand. And I'm a watch collector, and I have seen watch prices go crazy since lockdown. Reason being is more demand, less supply. So people like Patek and Audemars Piguet, they are not making anywhere near as many watches as they could to keep up with the demand. And I've been on a waiting list for 4 APs for 6 months, not a sniff. And I've bought loads of APs. I'm a good customer of theirs. And there's one particular watch I want. It'll probably be a 3-year wait. So when you have more buyers than sellers, you have, forced increase in prices. Now, in the UK, the planning laws are such you can't just go and build anything anywhere. So there's not a lot of land that we're allowed to build on. There is land, but we're just not allowed to build on it. And then a top economist told me this, and I've never heard this before, but this makes complete sense to me. He said that there's pressure from the banks in the UK on the Treasury to suppress house building. Because if all of a sudden we built 5 million houses, the value of all the other houses relatively could go down because you've got increased supply. And then that's a risk to all the banks that have got all the mortgages on all the properties. So apparently there's been like 21 housing ministers in the last 20 years. And they come in with this vision that we need to build all these houses. And then basically the banks and the governments go, no, we don't really want to build anymore. And people don't understand this. And this is why, until that changes, which is not going to be in our lifetimes, property will always go up. And that's why it's probably the best investment class that I know.
Yes. So you said a few things in that. One of the first things you said that you let some of these properties go.
Yeah.
So, when somebody buys an asset, some people want to get into flipping and buy an asset and flip it. My granddad did that in the 60s, and he bought a property for £2,000 and thought he was a G when he goes, 6 months later, we're selling it for 6,000. And then I think around the late 70s, there was a big inflation sort of hike, etc. And 6 months later, that same property went to £60,000. So he always said, Sean, never ever sell, an asset. Like when you've got it, just refinance it, get your money back out, and then it's like a free trade. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah. So we own, I think, 370 properties. I always like to check with my business partner because he tracks it all. But let's say it's 370 property individual units that we rent out. And in 10 years, when I'm walking down the high street in Peterborough, I can either say to my son and daughter, used to own that, sold that, spent the money on that, paid the tax on that, bought a watch with the profits on that, bought a car with the profits on that. Or I can say, I own that, paid 200 grand, that's worth $1 million. I own that, I own that, I own that. So from a legacy perspective, what I own is still in my empire, and what I don't is just a story that I used to tell. Mm-hmm. Plus, I have experienced myself from 2006 to 2023 a virtual tripling in the prices. The next thing you got to think about is tax and accounting. So if you flip a property, you will be paying capital gains tax. If you don't flip the property, you don't pay the capital gains tax. You can refinance as opposed to sell, draw some of the increased capital without the capital gains tax liability. And it still provides income, and it goes up in value. The other thing is you lose the income stream. So I think humans generally manage capital badly. Like at the moment, I'm literally today buying an Aston Martin DBS, and I'm just replacing my Panamera Turbo S with the DBS as the daily driver. It's a stupid decision, really. It's a £250,000 car. It will drop like a stone, but I've got the money. Now, if I didn't have the capital, I wouldn't be buying things like that. So most people, when they sell a property, they pay the taxes. They don't realize also buying and selling costs. You've got to pay the fees and all of this, and you take little bits off here and there, and you might be left with half. Oh, also, when you sell, you've probably got to drop the price a bit. So what you've got in equity, you've probably got up to only half of that net in real cash when you sell. And then you've got to do something with that cash. So let's say you sold a property and you're left with a lump of cash. What are you going to do with that lump of cash? I bet if you're thinking smart, you think, well, I just want to put it into property. So why sell a property to take it out of property to put it back into property? But also, if you keep the asset, you get the income, the residual income. And, if I spend my income this month, it's coming next month. If I spend that next month, it keeps coming. So capital, you spend it, it's gone. Income, you can't, if it keeps coming, you can't ever spend it all. You can spend it this month, but then you get more next month and next month. So they're the reasons that my strategy for property is easy. People overcomplicate things. It's buy, hold, die.
I love that. I like it. But why can't people stay consistent like that? Why isn't that really a strategy like buy and hold? Like a time in the market.
Yeah, exactly. It's time in the market, not timing the market. Yeah. People try and time the market. Buy low, sell high, except you don't know when low and high is, therefore you can't time the market. But time in the market, law of compounding, decades in the market. I think most people don't do that. One, because they're impatient. They've not seen the results of compounding. And I think they feel like they need the cash now.
Yes. Rob, look, I've done quite a few businesses myself. and the one that attracts me the most is real estate and property, because you do the least amount of work for it. And I am one of the laziest people in the room. Yeah, I might work here in this job and put money aside, but I've tried restaurants near Liverpool Street, and it just takes a lot of your time up, and you're doing all this red tape and forms and form filling, managing people, which, anyone outside of yourself. But I see a lot of people out in the market running a lot of businesses, but when I talk to them about real estate, that's a bit slow. That's a bit, maybe I'll think about putting some of my money there, etc. You're a business owner yourself. You own many different businesses, property companies, book selling, and I'm sure other things that you'll tell us about in this podcast. What is one of your favorite asset classes, and what pushes you into that sort of space?
Yeah, I suppose some people could feel that property and real estate is a bit slow, but it's a long-term asset class, and it can be one of the more passive or recurring asset classes. If you want something quicker, the exchange, because everything has a downside, people don't understand this. They're looking for the business model that has the most, if not all, amount of upside and none of the downside. So if you want to increase your earning capacity, develop a skill that other people will pay for, or choose a business model where you can convert where you are now to a product or service in quick time. But the trade-off of that is your time. Harry was talking to me in the car. He says, do you ever manage your tenants? No. In the last 17 years, I've never spoken to any of my 1,350 tenants that we currently manage. So it really doesn't need my time. I mean, of course, acquiring the property and acquiring the knowledge takes time. So I'm getting the rewards now, and that will last for the rest of my life. If I needed something quicker and more immediate, I would look at what skills and experience and knowledge have I got that I could monetize, and what's the shortest cash flow cycle. So being a doctor is a really long cash flow cycle. I decide to want to be a doctor now, I can earn in 7 to 9 years. But starting a podcast or a YouTube channel or an information-based business like Progressive Property, that's a quick cash flow cycle. Because in theory, you could earn money within a week as long as you've got the credible knowledge. So I actually think it's smart to have both. I have businesses with quick cash flow cycles, and then the profits from those go into long-term asset classes like property. Now, I own some classic cars. I have a good watch collection. I have other assets like books and content. Harry, my producer, manages my podcast and YouTube, which, in a good year, that'll be a 7-figure income. It goes up and down with the algorithms, which we were talking about a bit earlier. But nearly all of my profits from the quicker cash flow cycle trading type businesses go into longer term assets. And look, property is the best one because you can go to a bank and they'll lend you for property, but they won't lend you for watches or supercars or crypto or anything like that. So it's proven. It's got thousands of years of history, which cryptos and watches, etc., don't have. It has capital growth and income. Gold has capital growth, not income. So it's one of the rare ones where you can get equity if you buy it well, capital growth if you hold it, and income. Whereas most other asset classes have one or two, but not all three.
Mm-hmm. Another thing when you're running other businesses, Rob, is they have a shelf life. Like, there's technology that replaces some businesses, or, AI that will replace some jobs, etc. out there. What do you think is the average shelf life of a business is outside of property? Because you've done many businesses.
Honestly, I can't answer that question because I live in this silo where I've been running a training business for 16 years and I've been in real estate for 17 years. And that is not average. That is way above average. But I like to think anything I put my mind to, I would be way above average. My net worth is way above average. I've written more books. Well, I guess the average is 0 point something, and I've written 18. So to me, thinking about averages, like my son sometimes talks about average heights and average weights and average scores in exams at school. And I try and get him away from that, because anything you dedicate your time and your passion to, it should be a given that you would be way above average. So, you hear, don't you, people say things like 90% of businesses fail within the first year and 90% of them fail within the next 3. And that might be true. I imagine it's probably not far off that, because it's fucking hard to run a business and it's fraught with risk. But mine's been going for 17 years and it's only getting stronger. So I would say to anyone, fuck averages and think about, what are you prepared to do where being average would be a failure? Where are you experienced? Where are you passionate? And also, remember, you have great capacity to adapt. Human beings, in some ways, are a very adaptable species. And we often adapt as a coping mechanism to avoid pain. So when I started, when I started in 2006, I was working for a property sourcing company. In 2007, I set up my own property sourcing company. In 2008, I started my own training business. In 2010, I bought a personal development business. By 2010, I'd authored 2-3 books. In 2016, I launched my podcast. In 2023, I'm writing my new book. So you can adapt and evolve. Your business doesn't have to look the same. In fact, Lamborghini used to make tractors, not sexy, loud sports cars. So get involved in whatever it is you want to launch as a passion into a profession and adapt over time. We did mostly online training in lockdown. Now we're back to nearly all face-to-face post-lockdown. In lockdown, all of my contemporaries were like, we'll never do face-to-face events again. They're dead. And I said, we will. And now many of them aren't. They're not running their business anymore, or they're struggling. So I don't really tend to deal in averages.
Yeah. Where does this all come from? Like, where does that discipline, that motivation, that push, that drive to keep getting bigger, or look at another aspect of, I can push it this way, I can get a book deal done here, or I can see another opportunity? Where do these thoughts come from?
I think there's a human nature part and Rob's slightly weird upbringing part. So the human nature part is, whilst I can't profess to know the entire meaning of life, I do passionately put to people that evolution is essentially growth and expansion of humanity. We seem to be programmed to go and want to hunt and to discover new lands, traveling across turbulent seas, risking death to find a new land or paradise, now up into new planets and solar systems. So it seems that part of our purpose of life is growth and expansion. And it seems as we grow and expand, we become stronger. And it seems that as we grow and expand, because we seem to have this inbuilt desire to do so, like, who wants to get worse at something that they're passionate about? No one. I mean, you might not care about something and therefore not want to grow in it, but anything that you're passionate about or interested in, you want to get better. Jiu-jitsu, being a podcaster, your physical physique, how long you want to live. If you're passionate about those things, you want to get better. You want to grow. You want to expand. And this seems to be inbuilt within every human as human nature, individually and collectively. And then there's me as a kid growing up in my dad's pub, always upstairs, often alone. Then the fattest kid in my secondary school, and this feeling of loneliness and just on the outside and not being appreciated and respected and noticed. And so this constant void that I'm trying to fill, both on the humanity level of what's the infinite potential of me, and then on my own personal level of I'm a worthy human being. I've learned to quite like myself. I want to be noticed. I want to be respected. I don't want to always be picked last at sport. I don't want always to be taken the piss out of. And so they're the things inside me that drive me. And I'm 44 and I feel as young as I've felt maybe in my life. I definitely feel younger now than I did when I was 21, when I used to drink socially with my friends. That my hunger for life and challenges is maybe stronger than it was. I mean, it was strong when I started the business because I had nothing. And so when, you know, you're the most hungry when you haven't eaten for the longest. And I had the least amount of money, therefore I was hungry. Maybe I have a different kind of hunger now. But that's where it all comes from for me.
That's very, very interesting, that is. Yeah, because at school also I got bullied a lot for being the fat kid. And it was just like you were always at the butt of all the jokes or got beaten up for being fat. And it was just like I wanted gratification. Do you know what I mean? Like I want to go out and be noticed for doing something good. So yeah, that's really interesting, Rob. I suppose what I want to sort of go back to is you saying it's a basic human instinct to want to go and hunt and be better, but a lot of people these days are not like that. They're really, really comfortable, and
I disagree.
They are complacent.
I disagree.
Well, I don't know. As a mentor, there's so many people you almost have to, be accountable for too. Like, they need to compulsively ask you, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't meet all of my goals this week." And there's rooms full of people who are just not motivated.
I disagree.
Go on.
So I hear you, but I believe that you are judging these individuals based on what you value, not on what they value. And I'll give you an example. A 13-year-old kid who's not motivated at school, but is the best at Fortnite or Call of Duty. They shouldn't be playing Call of Duty at 13, but they are.
Yeah.
So that particular kid is very motivated at playing computer games, but not motivated in geography because they don't like the teacher and they don't have a passion or an interest in it. So what I believe you've done, which we all do, by the way, and I try not to do this, is you've judged people having a lack of motivation and too much comfort in the area of mentoring them in success around property and business.
Yeah.
But they may be kidding themselves that that's important to them, but actually it's not. And you may see them on the dojo in jiu-jitsu and they're highly motivated. And the reason this is really important is because people who are successful in a discipline judge those who are not successful in that discipline. But those people are more successful in another discipline they value compared to this person who's got a six-pack or has made a lot of money. And you wouldn't want everyone on this planet to be disciplined and motivated in property because that's more competition for you. And there's no nurses and no doctors and no janitors. So actually, for humans to be a society and a community and evolve together, we all need to have different roles and functions. And, I don't want to talk everyone into being an entrepreneur, a creator, and a property investor, especially not in Peterborough, because otherwise I'm just creating all my competition and who's going to wash my cars and who's going to do my dry cleaning. And, I'm not saying that to be elitist, but, I don't look down. I look across on humans. We've all got a different role to play. So if anyone is struggling with motivation or discipline or focus, number one thing you've got to ask is this thing important to me? Or am I kidding myself, or is society or someone imposing that it should be important to me? If it is important to me, then why? Am I not getting the right education? Am I not around the right people? Have I not got the right mentors? But to say society is lazy, for example, you didn't say that, but that could be a general statement. Well, I'm not lazy in training for my boxing match, and I'm not lazy as a property investor, and you're not lazy as a podcaster. We're just judging maybe the woke left or maybe the younger generation, just because it's different times. And don't forget, there's tools like social media and AI, which replace certain human functions. So we had to do all the research ourselves, and now we don't. And so the world has changed and evolved, and it's different. And here's another reason why I think this is important to say, because I could have just agreed with you, because I've mentored hundreds of thousands of people, and some of them I look at them and I think, you've got everything you need, just get off your ass. Why you're not getting off your ass? Mm-hmm. But everyone, I believe, has to believe that they can do it. And a lot of people don't believe they can do it, whatever it is. And I'm here to tell you, if you want to do it, one, you have to define it. Two, you have to make sure that it is something that you really want to do. Three, you have to start it. And four, you have to persist at it. And then you can do whatever you want. And you're not lazy just because you're not rich yet.
Yes. But some people want the lifestyle and they want the money. And they look around and say,
Everyone wants the lifestyle and the money.
But then they look at where one of the biggest industries is, and that's probably stocks and shares on the financial floor or property. And they're like, well, if I get a deposit or find someone to work with and I get into that, everybody thinks 1-2 properties, I'm going to be rich. That's the focus. So how do they put a filter on that?
Yeah, look, let's all be honest. Do we all want the shortcut? Yeah. Like, who wants to go down the long, painful, difficult road? No one. Why? Because there's a part of our brain that is looking for instant gratification. It's a human trait. You even admitted to yourself that you can be lazy at times. So, of course, every human is going to be allured by the instant gratification. And many of us fall for it. But in an area of your life that is really important to you, if you can understand that diamonds are formed under pressure and things that are easy now are hard later, but if they're hard now, they're often easy later, and anything worth doing is worth doing well and long, then in the end, you realize that the shortcut is actually the long way round. So, if anyone listening is a successful entrepreneur, I bet you at times they've either taken a fat burner pill or a steroid or tried to cheat or shortcut in some way their health and fitness. Because humans have a driver for instant gratification. And so as other humans know that, they use that as a marketing tool. I bet anyone listening who's been successful in the gym has also put needles in their forehead or in their lips or whatever, because they want to instantly look younger or better. So how I try and live my life is where I'm looking for the shortcut, just try and say to myself, the shortcut is actually the long road, and the long road is actually the shortcut. I've never had Botox. I've never had any cosmetics. I'm training for a fight. I'm not even so much as having creatine, let alone any fat burners or anything like that. And no enhancing supplements, because the way I see it is that's the shortcut, and it'll end up not being the shortcut. Whereas if I just train fucking hard, that's the best way to win. And I try to teach myself that.
How do you train fucking hard? Where does that come from? Where's that drive?
Desire, hunger, need.
What's the need?
The need to win, the need to be better than someone else, the need to be better than yourself, the need to not publicly fail and be humiliated, the need to challenge yourself, the need for growth, the need for variety.
Why though?
So let's say this was a setup and actually you were here to deliver the news to me that I had 24 hours to live. If that was the case, I would look at you and go, for the last 17 years, I've lived a fucking good life. For the first 26, not so much, because I believe that my birthday isn't January the 4th, 1979. It's December the 15th, 2005, but that's a different story. But I can honestly say that if today were my last 24 hours, number one, we'd need to get a lot of women to come and join us in this room. Just my wife. Harry, you'd be in, wouldn't you? No, if this were my last day, I'd be pleased and proud of what I've achieved in my life. That's why I do these challenges. That's why I take the longer, harder road. That's why I took the bait of this charity boxing match. That's why I got the world record for the longest public speech. That's why I've written 18 books and not 17. That's why I said I interrupted you in your intro, which was very rude, to correct you, to tell you that we have the UK's largest property training company, because that is true. And that was my goal to build. It wasn't my goal to build one of the largest. It was the largest. Because when I get to 24 hours before my death, I want to make sure I've lived. And too many people that's why it's good to look at death and tune into death, because I think it's the only way you really know how to live. I wouldn't want to live forever, because if you could live forever, you wouldn't live. If you only have a short time to live, that's when you fully live.
Can I ask you a personal question?
12 inches.
Does young Rob, does that person ever speak to you?
Right. So my therapist, who I hadn't seen for a long time, but I went to see her a few weeks ago. She's always talking about this young Rob. And she's like, you're not very nice to him. And you don't listen to him. And you're not very compassionate to him. And yeah, she says we have multiple personalities. And I have this personality of this young Rob. And she's always taking the therapy sessions down that road. And I must admit, I resist that a bit. There's a lot of shame for me being young. There's some things even I probably wouldn't talk about on a podcast. I've not been abused, but there's just some intense shame about sort of age 9 to 13. And so it's really fucking hard for me to really honestly, if that was someone else's son, I'd probably have a massive amount of compassion for them. I don't really have compassion for myself. I don't really it's not that I don't like myself then, just don't like that part of my life. It's just fucking so much pain. And always hiding and running away from it and just obsessing about just being loved. So that's probably an area of my life where maybe there's work to do. But it's also a driver. If I didn't have that shame, and I wouldn't have the polarizing drive that comes from running away from that shame. In a way, that shame from then has driven me. Everyone who's in my camp will tell you I'm training like a professional fighter, and I'm not a professional fighter. But part of that is driven by shame. And people think that shame is a bad emotion. It's just an emotion. It's a very motivating emotion. So you were talking about sometimes people are lazy and comfortable. Comfort is, I think, one of the great enemies of progress, because it's shame and guilt and loneliness, and envy. These emotions are powerful and motivating. I didn't get my first Ferrari through comfort. I got it through envy, i.e., why the fuck should you have one? Why can't, if you can, why can't I? And I'm not embarrassed to admit that. It was envy for 3 years that drove me to get my first. It's not envy. I'm about to buy my 8th car, so I'll have 8 cars. It's not envy that's driving me to the 8th. It's a lot of spare cash. But it was envy that got me my first Ferrari, and it's not a bad thing.
See, Rob, this is what I'm sort of getting at. Like, you've had certain situations happen to you which caused you a great deal of pain, and that's almost like your driver. And I feel there's certain things in my life that happened that drove me to try and make it out of the hood, as they would say, to get to a level where nobody could judge me or dictate me, and I'm not that little fat boy or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But not a lot of people have that scenario, that situation. Their mum's been very good, their dad's been amazing. They're all in the matrix. Everything's kind of wrong. They're going into 9 to 5, and then they want to do better in life, but then they don't as well, because there's not that thing.
Yeah.
That thing in their childhood that made them feel a certain way, that people judged them a certain way. You're feeling like a nobody. They don't have that thing driving them. How do you put that into somebody? Like, do you tell them go to the gym and put yourself through pain, or what? Like, how can they find that driving factor, that little mechanism?
Yeah. Okay. I agree that there are many people who are probably relatively comfortable, but I would say there are way more people that experience some form of pain or trauma growing up. I would argue, and I don't know this, but it would be interesting if anyone's listening, maybe they could send in some research if they've done this. I would argue that most of us have experienced some pain and trauma growing up, even if it was imagined. Because honestly, a lot of the bullying and the loneliness I felt was imagined in my own head as much as it was physically done. I wasn't beaten up in the playground every day, and I wasn't teased and tormented every day. So I more tormented myself. They say, don't they, 99% of the things you worry about never actually come true. I think Mark Twain said, I had many bad things that happened in my life, and most of them didn't happen, or something around all the worries that never actually occurred. I probably just butchered one of the great quote masters of all time there, Mark Twain. Mark Twain also said, the more I learn about humans, the more I like my dog. So my guess is most of us listening have experienced some pain, trauma, or challenge growing up. And that can be a good fuel to use to motivate you. If you're listening and everything's quite comfortable, all you've got to do is ask, what do you really want? Because I would argue we all want a nicer car and a nicer house and a nicer lifestyle. And some of us are honest enough to admit that and will go and hunt for it. And others have just sold out their dreams and, oh no, life isn't all about material items. But if we could choose, we would probably choose something nicer than we've got. Remember going back to humans' desire for expansion and growth. So sometimes people are comfortable because they're at their level, and that's okay. Or what I would say to those people is, just be okay with being at your level. I don't want all nurses to quit and become an entrepreneur, because there's going to come a time in my life when myself and my children are going to need nurses. Now, many nurses start as nurses because they want to help people, and that's great, and we need more people like that. I personally believe we should be paying nurses more money, but that's a governmental issue. It's not anything that entrepreneurs or billionaires are doing wrong. But generally, there's 2 ways to motivate yourself, pleasure or pain. So you either set a very clear, specific goal of the things you really want in life, and then the test for if you really want them is how much you're prepared to sacrifice in exchange for getting them. Or many successful entrepreneurs are driven by inherent pain, like you and I. It's one or the other.
Yes. Brilliant way to put it. So tell us a little bit about the journey growing up. So you've always been in Peterborough?
I was transported to Peterborough age 17 by my parents.
Okay.
Because they bought a rundown pub there, and my dad turned that round and did it up. I actually don't like. Peterborough probably is my home, even though I wasn't born there. Because I was born in Newmarket but didn't live there very long. And then Bury St Edmunds didn't live there very long. And Cambridge and Neely and these. I went around this place, but didn't live in them very long enough to say they were my home. Yeah, so it's probably Peterborough, I suppose.
And how was your education? How was you doing in school and college, uni?
I did good in school because I was driven by shame. So I got 98% in religious studies without ever really knowing what I was studying. I was just good at reading the parable of the sower and the St. John's part of the Bible and then reciting it in a test. I got 2 A stars, 6 A's and 2 B's in my GCSEs with no real interest in any of the subjects. I got an A star in religious studies, not knowing why I was studying it. But I always studied hard for exams out of the desire to prove for people and be noticed. So it was like, the way I approached school and exams was like the way I was the fat kid trying to get picked at sport or noticed by the girls. So I remember they put me in the middle streams. So in my school, there was A, B, C, D, and E set or stream. And they just default put me in the middle. And that made me really angry. And so when the exams came and they put the leaderboards up, I was second, third, fourth, or first in the whole year, even though I was in the C set. And everyone was like, fucking hell, who's this guy? It's not even in the A set. I got 100% at GCSE. I got the best. I was the only person in the whole country who got 100% at art at GCSE. I know because my tutor told me. My tutor basically said to me when I did my final piece of work, I think if you add some colour to this, you could get a very, very high grade. He basically told me that I'd get 100%. And that was not because I wasn't interested in any of those subjects. I wasn't interested in architecture that I did at university. I was interested in getting noticed. So school was weird for me because actually what I should have done was business, finance, economics. But it was an amazing relief to me when I started to become successful in business. I get this weird recurring dream and I wake up with I have this recurring dream that I'm stuck at university and I'm in masses of debt and I don't know what I want to do with my life. And then I wake up. I'm like, fuck me, life is amazing. And my dreams are always really real, very vivid. Some I definitely can't say on a podcast. But I have that recurring dream where I'm stuck in the matrix, as you call it, like broke and not knowing what I want to do with my life. And then I wake up and I am like living a fantasy. And that is an amazing feeling.
So what path did you take after school then?
Well, I went to school and got good grades because you're supposed to. And I wanted people to call me smart and not thick. Went to university because I wanted people to call me smart and not thick.
What did you study?
Architecture.
Architecture.
Yeah.
Okay. How was that?
Waste of time. Complete waste of time. I should have started my business when I was 18, but shoulda, woulda, coulda. But I didn't know what to do.
Maybe you wouldn't be the same Rob Moore.
Maybe. Yeah, no regrets. I'm okay with where I'm at in my life. But if I'd have started business at 18 and not 26, it would definitely.
So what path did you take between 18 and 26? How did that bit of the journey go?
Well, I was still trying to get noticed by everyone and loved by people.
Mm-hmm. What about first jobs? Were there any jobs involved before school, college, around that?
Yeah, I mean, I worked in my dad's pub from age 6. I worked in his pubs, his bars and his restaurants from age 6. Always earned...
Pulling a pint?
Always earned my own money. Yeah, pulling pint, carving, bottling up, emptying the pool tables and the fruit machines, hustling, you name it.
What did that teach you?
Well, I liked it better than school.
What? Why? Why was, I've just got to be here, answer a couple of questions, listen to a teacher. This could be just good life, or why did you like the pub better?
Felt useful. Could see the reward. Dad would pay me after every session I did. He wouldn't pay me every week or every month. It'd be £1 or £5 or £10. The denominations went up.
Why did that matter to you, the money?
Because there's the instant reward for the work. Otherwise, why work?
Did you have like things that you wanted already?
It also really mattered to me that it came from my dad.
Okay.
Yeah, because then I got noticed and appreciated and valued by my dad. Yeah. But from age 21 to 25, I just worked in my dad's pub, but then that became a chore. I didn't enjoy it. There was strain on our family. I knew I was meant for more than just pulling pints in a bar. Nothing wrong with that, but I was meant for more. I went back to work in my dad's pub age 21 because my mum said, come and work here for a few weeks. I'm not sure, something's up with Dad. And I went and I stayed there for 4 or 5 years. And I think that a lot of people, that's how life happens to them. Like, you don't intend to be on this path forever. And then you wake up and you've been on this path forever. That's scary.
Would you say your father was one of your first mentors?
I wish I really knew what a mentor was and the value of a mentor when I was younger, because I'd have probably appreciated the wisdom my dad had more. But, who listens to their dad? Some people do, but a lot of people don't. I was too busy trying to get my dad's love. Yeah.
That's deep, man. It's deep. Wow. So, what got you into entrepreneurship, Rob? Where was that factor of that balance changing? You weren't enjoying the pub anymore. You wanted a little bit of a change. How did you know what to do? How did you know, even what rooms to enter, or if you had money or not, or if you did have money or you didn't have money? Like, how was you going to make this thing happen?
What got me into being an entrepreneur is not why I'm still an entrepreneur. What got me in was a total disdain of authority and an ego so big, but not in the bragging sense, in the trying to protect me sense, that I found it ever increasingly harder to do what someone else would tell me. And so I fell for the rhetoric that you can be your own boss. And by the way, I'm glad no one told me the actual truth. Be your own boss. Do what you want, when you want, where you want, with who you want. That is the biggest delusional load of nonsense. But I'm glad I didn't know the reality. Because when lockdown happened and I had 105 staff in my office, and I had to go in the kitchen with my MD and my business partner and basically go down that list and go, got to let them go, got to let them go, got to let them go. Yeah, they've got a young family. Yeah, they've just had children. Doesn't matter. Got to let them go, got to let them go. You're not doing what you want, when you want, where you want, with who you want. You're doing what you fucking have to do. And we had to do that. And I'm proud of myself that I did it. I'm also proud of myself that as soon as I could, I brought them all back. And proud of how we handled lockdown. Because the government fucking nearly ruined this entire country with what now has been proven to have caused more deaths than it saved. And you may have to edit this out because YouTube doesn't like us talking about these kind of things. I'll leave that up to you. But that's the fucking truth. And yet I just got on with business and did hard things. So look, I'm the top of the food chain in my organisation, but Harry's booked these 3 trips. He's driving the car. He's telling me where to go and when to go, and I'm doing what I am as much his bitch as he works for me. I happen to pay him, but he earns his money, and sometimes I look at Harry and go, he makes me do your intros. And you have to go, like the channel, subscribe. I feel like a complete whore when I do that. I hate doing that. And Harry's like, you've got to fucking do this. And I'm like, I'm just your bitch. And so, when you have children, you have this delusional fantasy. Oh, I can't wait to have children because I can teach them all my wisdom and I can raise them to be amazing people. No, when you have kids, they never fucking listen to you. And you've got to do half the time what they want you to do.
They teach you.
Yeah, that exactly. One of my mentors said to me, your children will teach you as much as you teach them. So what drove me to want to be an entrepreneur is the delusion. What I want, when I want, with who I want, and be my own boss. What drives me now is I love the responsibility of the lack of freedom I have. Paradoxically, it gives me freedom. I've got nearly 150 people on my payroll. I've got 1,350 tenants. That is a lot of responsibility. And you could argue a lot of people say to me, fucking hell, Rob, I wouldn't want that many tenants. I wouldn't want that many staff. So they see it as a lack of freedom. I see it as total freedom. So that's what got me into wanting to be an entrepreneur and run my own business. But I'm much better with authority now, and I'm much better at being told what to do. I just have to respect the person who's telling me. I respect you as an interviewer, so I'll answer any of your questions. If I didn't, you'd be getting a very rebellious version of me.
How have I been able to earn your respect?
Because you're asking thoughtful questions and you're allowing me to speak. And I wouldn't even be here if this wasn't a show we wouldn't want to be on. If you were trying to trap me with sound bites and do what BBC just did to Andrew Tate, you'd get some good content, but you wouldn't get a mate after this. Although you want some of that content, don't you, Harry? You want beef and arguments.
How did you get him on your podcast?
Now, if I told you, I'd have to kill you. You should probably ask me how we going to be one of the first independent media to get him again since his arrest. That's what you should probably ask me.
Well, that's what I meant to ask. Yeah. It just came out wrong.
Do you know what? There are some things on podcasts I should not say. And I'm not very good at it. Can you remember a question I've ever had, Harry, where I've refused to answer it? But I actually should do that a bit more. I am not telling you how we have managed to get Andrew Tate round 1 or round 2, bigger, better, and earlier than everyone else, on air. But I might do you a little bit of a favour off air. How's that? That's the right answer, isn't it, Harry? Yeah, because there's some things that we do that it takes a lot of persistence, smarts, consistency, relentlessness, creativity to do. And I'm not going to let the world know how we did that. However, what I will tell you is this: I will give you something, and that is take the time to handwrite letters to your top guests, and you will open way more doors. Take time. I wrote the book Life Leverage, which is basically how to hack time and achieve quicker, faster, and easier. And when I wrote that book, another author and creator who was very popular at that time was Tim Ferriss, who wrote The 4-Hour Workweek. And back then we were all trying to hack how to do things quicker. There are lots of things I want to do quicker, don't get me wrong. But meaningful things, I'm doing the opposite now. And I'm going to take longer. So I'm going to take longer to get Arnold Schwarzenegger on my podcast, so I actually get him. And I'm going to take longer to train, so I actually get fitter. So sometimes you should take longer, because people can. I want to shout out to Lewis, who just interviewed me. I know you know him.
Yeah.
Because he did a fucking ton of research on me. In fact, I think the only way I can, he must have listened to all of my content, because no one I've ever been interviewed with knew as much about me as he did. So he didn't try and do that quicker. He did that longer. Property. Don't try and do property quickly. Try and do it long.
Yes. Who interests you? So when you've been on a podcast, what type of people or influencers interest you when you have them on? People who create more drama, people who you learn more of, more psychology, how the brain works. Like, what kind of people do you learn off?
What kind of people do I learn off? And what kind of people might I want to interview? They can be different. So anyone who has truly mastered an art that I am interested in would be top of the list of who allures me and my interest as a human, whether to interview or to watch on Netflix or just to read about. That would be top. So Arnold Schwarzenegger, Alexander McQueen, James Hetfield, lead singer of Metallica. You know, like, I love heavy metal. I love Alexander McQueen. I love Arnold Schwarzenegger. So they would be top. Second would be someone who's an absolute master of something, but maybe I'm not mega interested in the niche, but I'm mega interested in them, because I just look at them and go, wow. So a big shout out. And if anyone can help me get this guest, I would love to get him, because I know I'm telling you, if I got this guest on my show, this would be the best interview he's ever had. And no one really talks about him in our world. And it's Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Today, he retired from football, age 41. And that guy is, if you want to talk about God tier, he is God tier. And I like football, but I don't love it. But I love Zlatan, because I don't know how any human can be that confident. And he's confident and poetic and absolutely brilliant at his craft. Conor McGregor would be another example of someone. I like UFC, but I don't love it. I like the creative space, but I don't love it. But he's taken the creative space and the martial arts space and fused it together. Like, it fucking angers me when BBC and other shitty mainstream media can get people like that. And there's people like you and I who are 10 times better creators and influencers, than we've yet to interview them. So people listening up, you need to get Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Conor McGregor on Sean Land and Rob Moore's shows. Now, you need to, like, BBC, fuck it all up, because that's what mainstream media do. So second for me is someone like Zlatan or Lewis Hamilton. I don't love F1, but I like F1. But, you know, he's brilliant at his art. Okay, then third tier down would be someone who's just really relevant of the moment and wild and viral and out there. And I actually, that was what initially lured me to Andrew Tate, because I didn't know of him before. I actually think there's a lot more to Andrew Tate than being third on my list. But I'm using him as an example. Andrew Tate, or, you know, the mainstream media, they would get Philip Schofield if he got cancelled or whatever. So, because, like, I hate to say this, but I have to say this. I would rather have my art viewed by millions or billions of people and not really love my art than to love my art and have no one view it. Which means that I might jump on trends or interview guests who I might not be in love with, but it's a short-term fix. And I blame the algorithms and social media and humanity's naivety.
But you want to be in the conversation.
Well, as someone, I wanted to be in the conversation when I was the fat fucker at school that everyone pushed to the side. So of course I still want to be in the conversation now. So on a human level, I want to be in the conversation. But on a brand and a creator level, because look, your cameras are expensive. This studio is nice. This shit isn't free. Anyone think they can just fucking get a Zoom H1 and go yada, yada, yada and create a podcast? You know, good art costs a lot of money. Anyone out there, oh, well, you know, art, it's not about the money. Good art costs a lot of money. So you've got to be in the conversation, because if you're not, you can't fund your art. What are these mics? 300 quid each? 500 quid each? What are they, Harry? Yeah. Anyway, I can't remember the question, but...
Well, but what you're saying is that if you want to do something, do it properly. And to do things properly, you need something behind you to do that. You know, it gives you opportunities too. Rob, I'm looking at time. I know we don't have too long, but I want to get over some questions.
When do we need to leave, Harry, just so we know? It's all right? Okay, we've got 25 minutes.
So how do you see failure? And, you know, are there things that you've failed in the last, 5 years? Like, I'm not talking about, obviously, building Rob Moore, but now you are Rob Moore. Everybody sees, oh, he's got a property company. He's buying his 8th car. Are you still failing on a daily basis, or are there still things going wrong for you now?
Okay, so things going wrong, that will be based on your own personal assumption of what is right. But sometimes the best things that happen to us that are right for us are the things that go wrong. And it's hindsight and wisdom gained from looking backwards. For example, I'm sure we've all got a story of someone we fell in love with that at the time we were so attached to and we were convinced was right. And looking back, we knew it was wrong because we've got hindsight. Well, business and life is exactly like that. And often the universe or nature or a greater purpose has way more wisdom than little old you and I to know what's right and wrong. So the way I view life now is, what are my goals and outcomes? And everything that happens on the journey towards that goal and outcome is right, not wrong, and is a success, not a failure. And I'm going to give you an example of this. I will not lose my fight. But were we in this weird parallel universe, if I lost my fight, is that a failure? Fuck no. Because I would have raised 130 to 140,000 pounds for charity. It just would so happen that 100 of that would go to my opponent's charity. But without me, my opponent wouldn't have been able to make that. We have already sold out 1,700 seats. I'm not Jake Paul, and we sold out 1,700 seats. I'm fitter and faster and healthier than I've ever been in my life. I've got 10 of my staff on the undercard who are fitter, faster and healthier than they've ever been. One of my staff came up to me and said, Rob, 2 weeks ago I was stacking shelves, and now I'm working for you in this amazing company and I'm fighting on this undercard. I cannot lose this fight. If I lose or win, I've won this fight. So I think if we focus too much on failure, number one, we get what we focus on, so we can attract it. And number two, it's just a perception. I've never gone bust. I've never had a company sink. But every day things have gone not how I would have liked it to go. But does that mean it's a failure? Every day we get rejected. How many rejections that Harry helps me acquire guests? How many times a day do you get rejected by people? Every day. Every single day. And there's guests that have been on other podcasts that are 1/50th as big as mine and that have been going for 1/10 of the time, and yet we're still getting knocked back. Is that a failure? No, because they're not taking it personal. Sometimes we've had a guest on and they won't come back on. Sometimes we have a guest agree and then they change their mind. I don't know, the reason I didn't start this answer with, well, there's no such thing as failure, there is only feedback, is because every entrepreneur knows that that's the rhetoric that you talk to yourself. And sometimes, I tell you the things I regret. Yeah. Well, I don't really, but for me, the only real failure is a mistake I make many times that hurts people. And I try my best to not make a mistake many times and to not hurt people. And if I made a mistake 50 times and it really hurt people, that to me, that would not feel good. And I would have to try and correct that.
And on your journey in terms of business, what is the biggest learn, that something that you didn't see coming like a curveball, and you were like, even though you outlasted it and you made it better process or operated differently, what would that one thing be if entrepreneurs looking at this podcast right now and saying, I should watch out for that, actually, maybe like have a backup contingency, something that really stuck out for you that you said, I wish I knew before?
Okay, well, I don't wish anything in the past to be different. And I actually don't wish I knew before, because I probably wouldn't have taken the leap. I'm going to give you two answers to your question, because the one answer that's the best answer isn't the answer that most people will want, but it's the truth. So for the answer that people would want is that the thing that would create the most amount of failure in and around my business would be my adverse emotional reactions to situations. And I quickly learned, as did my business partner, to keep our emotions in check and manage our emotions when there was defamation, hate, trolling, legal cases, people trying to cancel us, and all this bullshit that was going on, staff not turning in, letting you down, people fucking you over. If you keep reacting and adversely being emotional, all you do is manifest more of it and create more resistance to progress. As soon as you learn to manage your emotions, you remove the friction to grow within your business. I'll give you an example. Harry, can you attest to this? Have you ever seen me lose my shit and shout and scream and get angry at any one of my staff ever? How long have you been working with us? 7 years. Never in 7 years. And by the way, have I wanted to probably on a daily basis? Yes. I have never. Because I think that's the wrong thing to do, especially publicly when you humiliate people. I know what humiliation feels like. It feels horrible. So I've committed to a lifelong pursuit of mastery of my emotions, especially in my business. And I did it once 12 years ago, and I'll never do it again. Or I like to think I'll never do it again. So, however, actually the biggest threat to my business is the government. And the biggest failure in my business is the government. They take too much tax off me. They make it too hard to start and grow a business. They make it illegal to run your business in lockdown. They penalize you for growth. They make laws such that you need to hire an entire department just to pay them. I have probably 20 people I have to hire for VAT returns and tax returns. So, in an economy that is dying, not thriving, the very thing that will help the growing and thriving of an economy, which is enterprising, entrepreneurial, builders, creators, innovators, changers, movers, and shakers, they are stifling us and suffocating us. Yeah. So the reality of the biggest failure in businesses is our government, our current government. But I don't want people to go, oh yeah, the government make it really hard, therefore I won't start a business, or therefore I'll have to close my business. I'm running a thriving business in spite of and despite the government, who do fuck all to support us. Fucking nothing. 20% VAT, 25% corp tax, 45% income tax, national insurance for the employer and the employee, business rates. Let's say you want to start a business. You're already getting rent. You're already going to have to charge, well, you get a little bit of leeway and then you have to charge VAT. Then they bang business rates on you. Nah.
Nice answer. And before we wrap up, let's talk about the big event that's happening. I'm going to be really, really honest with you because I'm a really honest person. I didn't want to like you. I'll tell you why I didn't want to like you, because Sam reached out to me last August. I went round his house. He wasn't a bad guy. He was really fast at talking as well. And we conversated good, and we messaged each other. And I don't know, when I was like, I'm getting Rob Moore on, I felt like not betraying him, but it was just like, well, people think, well, which side are you on? But I really like you, man.
Thank you.
You're a really good guy, and so is Samuel in his own way. But you're very different. You're at different age groups. You conduct yourself differently. But I really like you, man. Let's go back to the fight. So what's this fight about? When did it all like stir off and kick off, man?
So I've known Samuel for many years, because he's in my industry.
Yeah.
And I make it my business to know my industry and know the people in my industry. I've always had an attitude, and I think this is a very helpful attitude, to know your competitors. In fact, I joint venture and collaborate with some of them. I've never done any work with Samuel, but you could argue that our charity boxing match is a collaborative joint venture. Because without him, I have no fight. Without me, he has no fight. So, when you look at it like that, you look at it a bit differently. No one else called me out for a fight. No one else is stepping in the ring with me. Whether I like him or not, I respect him more than anyone else who didn't. 1,700 people aren't going to turn up to watch me shadow box. And they ain't going to turn up to watch him shadow box. So, are we friends? No. He likes to think we're frenemies, and I didn't know that phrase until he said that phrase. We'll see how the fight goes, but I certainly respect that he's getting in the ring with me and that he called me out for a fight on a podcast. So here are the facts. We did a collaboration. He came to my studio. I interviewed him on his show. He interviewed me on mine. He said to me in his first question, I understand you think you could take me out in a fight. Would you put your money where your mouth is? I put 50 grand down, and then it all started from there. And now it's 100 grand, and we've sold 1,700 tickets, which is the capacity of the venue. On July the 1st, he's 25 kilos heavier than me, which is, that's a big risk. I'm taking a risk. And I'm going to win.
He thinks he's going to knock you out in the first 2 rounds.
Well, he thinks he's going to knock me out in the first round because that's the only way he can win. Like, think about it logically. You've got a fitter, lighter, and likely technically better boxer against a slower, heavier boxer. How does the slower, heavier one win? Knockout. Why first round? Because he's going to blow out of his ass by middle of the second round. Everyone fucking knows this. He knows this.
He's been training hard. He's looking phenomenal.
Did you say he's been training hard?
Yeah.
You said he's looking phenomenal. Where's my phone? Right. Where's my phone? You and I have got a different definition of phenomenal.
He's lost that gut. That gut's gone.
No. Let's get this real. Samuel is the master of kidology. So let me show you. I met him last week. So, you can look at his social media.
Yeah.
And you can be lured in and wowed and impressed. I met him last week.
But
tell me that's not a pair of tits.
But I have to say, but listen, what about Tyson Fury? Tyson Fury's not body beautiful, but
Tyson Fury's been boxing his whole life.
Yeah, but listen, look. How do you know he hasn't been technically training? How do you know he hasn't got his stamina levels up and he's, how do you know? Like, he knows what's on the line as well.
Oh, right.
This is like, am I going to your property education group now or his because you beat him in a fight or he beat... There's a lot on the line here.
Yeah. So I believe Samuel Leeds has trained hard. I know Rob Moore has trained harder. Remember, Rob Moore is the fat kid that lost all the weight that still needs to be respected and admired. Samuel Leeds is the overweight adult, i.e. he hasn't got enough pain in his life to lose all that weight. He has now. He's fighting with me. That's quite a good lesson in that. I do not underestimate Samuel Leeds. I just believe in myself. He would have got a really good coach or coaches. He'd have trained every day. I train more than that. I've got the right coaches.
Who's training you?
I'm not telling you who's training me. I'm not telling you my training
right,
program.
But if somebody...
You're friends with Samuel Leeds. Is he sat behind that sofa?
Come out, Samuel.
Yeah. Do you know what? I've had a few people approach me for coaching and I've thought, I wonder if that's Samuel sending them trying to infiltrate the camp.
Wow.
Because in a way, that would be smart.
Yeah.
Look, I do not underestimate Samuel Leeds. I do not underestimate his size, therefore his power. I assume he will be much fitter. I just know I will be even fitter. I assume he will have some level of boxing skills. I will just have better. I know this.
Have you ever fought before?
No.
Wow. And I'm sure he's had some white collar boxing experience.
Yeah, he has.
So he's been in a ring before.
Yeah.
Because sometimes even when you I've done some white collar, but sometimes my first fight, I thought I was really strong and I had nothing left because I was so tense. Like, obviously your coaches are relaxing you and telling you how to be on the night and stuff. Like, you up for this?
Yeah. So look, it's 4 weeks away. So I can't tell you how I'm going to feel when I get in. Here's what I can tell you. I'm used to presenting myself publicly to thousands of people. I've done it for 15 years as a public speaker. So whilst I know there are going to be emotions there, do I believe in my ability to control those emotions? Yes. Everyone tells me that the adrenaline dump and the pressure of the situation can really gas you out. That's why half or a third of my fitness will be twice or 5 times his best fitness. So I have dedicated myself to being prepared for that situation as well. Might I be nervous? Might I tense up? Yeah, maybe. I'll tell you afterwards. I'm not cocky and I'm not overconfident. I just believe in myself. I know what I can do. I don't really want to big myself up too much, but I train with people half my age and I'm fitter and faster than them. And do you know what? Everybody who's trained me has said, have you really never done boxing before? Nope. I sparred with someone who's been boxing for 8 years and is the bodyguard of the most famous people and, you know, princes and sheikhs and we had a 15-minute round and a 5-minute round and a 7-minute round, and we went the whole distance. And he said, have you really never boxed before? Someone trained me who's had 9 fights. He says, have you really never boxed before? I've never boxed before. So I've just got enough pain in my life and enough on the line. Because you know when some people say, I've been doing this for 5 years. What, once a week for 5 years? What about 12 times a week for 1 year? Which one's going to get you better? I also know, whatever the unlikelihood is, I also know I could lose. And I'm okay with that. Because I don't want to put too much pressure on myself. I want to go in there. I want to remember it, enjoy it. I want to remember and feel every punch. And when the left body comes in, I just want to taste it and smell it. When his head goes back like this, I want to feel it all. I don't want to get so nervous and so worried and so overwhelmed that it's like, whoa, over, which it is for a lot of people. Yeah. If I go to a really nice restaurant, I eat slower than I normally do because I want to fucking enjoy it. And that's how I'm going to be fighting. I'm going to enjoy every punch.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know I'm going to be there and a group of the other property guys are going to be there. It's a great networking event.
Do you know what? There'll be a lot of millionaires there.
Yeah.
A lot.
Mm.
Yeah.
and we can't wait for it. Rob, is there?
Who are you putting your money on? Who do you think's going to win? Samuel Leeds or Rob Moore?
I'm not gonna say.
Ah!
I'm not gonna say. I might tell you off the camera. I'm not gonna say anything. But I like both of you for different reasons. Like, he's a really like nice, lovable sort of guy as well. Like, and yourself, you're so knowledgeable. You articulate yourself so well. You think about questions and bring out books and quotes and people and scenarios you've been in. Like, I've got so much respect for someone like you, because I'm being a bit selfish here, but this is who I look for in terms of growth. Like, I've got businesses, I'm earning money, I've got all of this stuff. Some of the questions I've just asked for myself to say, what am I doing next? What do I need to look at for next year? So you're both really, really great people, and I just know it's going to be one of the biggest. It is going to be the biggest event for the property guys. All of these, influencers these days are having like celebrity boxing matches, and it's great because you guys are going to start paving the ways for it to happen in our sort of industry and fields. I don't think I'm going to be getting in the ring, but it's just like really nice to see, be part of. You're going to network. We're going to be able to network with other people who we've seen, and we might even probably see some boxing stars there as well. And that's Eddie Hearn's backyard. So, we don't know. I've got quite a lot of boxers coming onto this podcast who've just fought on Matchroom and boxing and stuff. CSL has just came on, and Legal Blows have just also come on, and they're working with Hamza Shiraz with the middleweight champion. So yeah, I love that whole vibe and the whole conversation. So Rob, is there a question you wish I asked you?
Well, as you know, I don't really wish anything were any different. No, there isn't. Harry, is there anything you wish I was asked? Other than how many genders are there? Because that goes viral, and you'd love me to talk about that. Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing I can think of.
And do you have any question for me?
Who would be your ideal guest for your show?
Probably
or top three.
I don't know if that's a person out there. I just really like having conversations about the mind, about the thoughts, and what creates the seed so what happens in someone's young childhood that defines them as a person. And that's why I go to all of my guests, I go to their childhood. So someone who's just really interested in terms of there's certain things that happen in childhood, and we can identify the mechanisms that other people can try, go through this sort of training through as well, to maybe make them more motivated to be the best version of themselves. I think that's what I'm just really trying to find, because there's so many young kids out there right now who don't have any belief. They don't want to achieve anything. They don't think they can achieve anything. And I know I was that little boy who didn't have any cards laid out for him. But I got out of my dad's corner shop, into McDonald's, into Barclays, became a builder, bought my first house, 21, and I made it happen. And we're still very normal, humble people, walk around like we're nothing. People wouldn't know I'm a millionaire. But it's not a status thing. We're not doing it for the money. It's because we're working for success. We want to be better than yesterday, no matter what it is. We want to be role models for our own children and to maybe the other next generation, because we want to feel valid and still relevant, that I can show you something that you don't know. And when somebody says thank you, it's very different than the next £1,000 that comes in your bank account. It doesn't really do much. Yes, you can buy nicer stuff, etc. But when somebody goes, thank you, you've really changed my life, that has a different sense of feeling to it. And I suppose I'm just finding a guest who can just bring that out. That's, I'm not saying I want it to go viral, but if it goes viral, I'm like, that was the guy I needed on my podcast, because he's the one who said something that everybody needed to hear. And I think that's what I'm trying to get at this podcast and speak to people. It's nice having people with big brands and followers behind them as well, because it means some of your audience gets to see us. Equally, my audience gets to see, some of the leading people in the industry that, I didn't know he was around, or he was teaching property as well. Maybe I can learn, because I'm not doing like property courses right now. Maybe they would say, well, if he's the best, let me go and see Rob's education course. So yeah, that's how I would answer that one, Rob. Brilliant. Well, it's been a brilliant podcast. If you just let everybody know how they can follow you.
My name is Rob Moore, M-O-O-R-E. So you can find all my books on Amazon, me on all social channels pretty much, except OnlyFans. And my podcast is called Disruptors.
There we go, guys. Look, it's you guys who make this channel alive, and it allows me to get better and better guests on the channel. So don't forget to like, leave us a comment, and share this with somebody who really needs it. But for now, that's it, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.